Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Rare opportunity to associate with an ever-liberated soul day after day. Some of our loyal regulars are in the Sadhu Sangha in North Carolina, and we wish them well in the Kirtan. All of you out in cyberspace, welcome back. Let's read Sanatana Goswami's prayer, glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, from the Sri Krishna Leela Stava by Srila Sanatana Goswami, one of the major acharyas in our line, coming from Lord Chaitanya. And it goes like this. Sarva Shashavdipi Yusha Sarva Vedayika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidvandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgudo Mad Mahadana Mad Nisadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune. Sadhu Sadhu Tadayin Ati Nicho Chitakara Hanamun Jagadachin Mam Prem Narit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, we've heard the wonderful story of Vritrasura and his exploits, his preaching to Indra, and great heroic activities. Now we're going to find out who he was and what that was all about. Oh, I thought you went to Sadhu Sangha. You got back already?
No, going tomorrow morning.
Oh, going tomorrow morning. Okay. What was the name of that girl that you brought today?
Leila.
Huh?
Leila.
How do you say it?
Leila.
Leela? No.
Layle.
Layle.
L-A.
Layla. Layla. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Layla. She was very nice, actually.
She's gonna come again.
Very good intelligence, very sharp. We hope she does. All right. We're beginning chapter 14. It's called King Citraketu's Lamentation. In this 14th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks his spiritual master, Citraketu Goswami, how such a demon as Vritrasura could become an exalted devotee. In this connection, the previous life of Vritrasura is discussed. This involves the story of Citraketu and how he was victimized by lamentation because of the death of his son. Among many millions of living entities, the number of human beings is extremely small. And among human beings who are actually religious, only some are eager to be liberated from material existence. Among many thousands of people who desire relief from material existence, one is freed from the association of unwanted persons or is relieved of material contamination. And among many millions of such liberated persons, one may become a devotee of Lord Narayana. Therefore, such devotees are extremely rare. Since bhakti, devotional service, is not ordinary, Parikshit Maharaj was astonished that an asura could rise to the exalted position of a devotee. Being doubtful, Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Shukadev Goswami, who then described Vritrasura with reference to his previous birth as Citraketu, the king of Shurasena. Citraketu, who had no sons, got an opportunity to meet the great sage Angira. When Angira inquired from the king about his welfare, the king expressed his moroseness, and therefore, by the grace of the great sage, the king's first wife, Kritadyuti, gave birth to a son, who was the cause of both happiness and lamentation. Upon the birth of this son, the king and all the residents of the palace were very happy. The co-wives of Kritadyuti, however, were envious, and later they administered poison to the child. Citraketu was overwhelmed by shock at his son's death. Then Narada Muni and Angira went to see him. Text 1. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami, O learned Brahmana, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritrasura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana? Purport. In this material world, everyone is obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. However, unless one conquers these modes and comes to the platform of goodness, there is no chance of one's becoming a pure devotee. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohanir bhukta bhajante mam dridavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. Since Vritrasura was among the demons, Maharaj Parikshit wondered how it was possible for him to have become such an exalted devotee. Text 2. Demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment hardly ever render pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Mukunda. Therefore, how could Vritrasura have become such a great devotee? Text 3. In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. I'll repeat that. In this material world, there are as many living beings as atoms. I once heard Gopi Puranadana Prabhu say something very kind of comical about that. He said, the Brahmajyoti, there are, and in the material world, there is a living being in every atom. He called it the waiting list. There's a section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that said that when Lord Chaitanya came, all the conditioned souls in the universe were liberated. And inconceivably, they all came back, or enough came back to repopulate the universe. Hare Krishna. In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a very few are human beings, and among them, few are interested in following religious principles. Count your lucky stars, kids. Text 4. O best of the Brahmanas, Chukavde Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, only a few desire liberation from the material world. Among many thousands who desire liberation, one may actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife, and children. And among many thousands of such liberated persons, one who can understand the true meaning of liberation is very rare. Purport. There are 4 classes of men, namely karmis, jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. This statement pertains especially to karmis and jnanis. A karmi tries to be happy within this material world by changing from one body to another. His objective is bodily comfort, either in this planet or in another. When such a person becomes a jnani, however, he aspires for liberation from material bondage. Amongst many such persons who aspire for liberation, one may actually be liberated during his life. Such a person gives up his attachment for society, friendship, love, country, family, wife, and children. Among many such persons who are in the vanaprastha stage, one may understand the value of becoming a sannyasi, completely accepting the renounced order of life. Text 5. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following purport to this verse. Simply desiring mukti or liberation is insufficient. One must become factually liberated. When one understands the futility of the materialistic way of life, one becomes advanced in knowledge, and therefore he situates himself in the vanaprastha order, unattached to family, wife, and children. One should then further progress to the platform of sannyas, the actual renounced order, never to fall again and be afflicted by materialistic life. Even though one desires to be liberated, this does not mean he is liberated. Only rarely is someone liberated. Indeed, although many men take sannyas to become liberated, because of their imperfections, they again become attached to women, material activities, social welfare work, and so on. Jnanis, yogis, and karmis, devoid of devotional service, are called offenders. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadi. One who thinks that everything is Maya, instead of thinking that everything is Krishna, is called an aparadi, or offender. Although the Mayavadis, impersonalists, are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna, they may nonetheless be counted among the sadhu, the siddhas, those who have realized the self. They may be considered nearer to spiritual perfection because at least they have realized what spiritual life is. If such a person becomes Narayana Parayana, a devotee of Lord Narayana, he is better than a Jivan Mukta, one who is liberated or perfect. This requires higher intelligence. There are 2 kinds of jnanis. One is inclined to devotional service, and the other to impersonal realization. Impersonalists generally undergo great endeavor for no tangible benefit, and therefore it is said that they are husking paddy that has no grain. Stula, tusha, vagatina. The other class of jnanis, whose jnana is mixed with bhakti, are also of two kinds: those who are devoted to the so-called false form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and those who understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Satchit Ananda Vigraha, the actual spiritual form. The Mayavadi devotees worship Narayana or Vishnu with the idea that Vishnu has accepted a form of Maya and that the ultimate truth is actually impersonal. The pure devotee, however, never thinks that Vishnu has accepted a body of Maya. Instead, he knows perfectly well that the original absolute truth is the Supreme Person. Such a devotee is actually situated in knowledge. He never merges in the Brahman effulgence. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 10.2.32, Yen ye ravindaksha vimukti maninas tvayashta bhavat avishuddha buddhayaha aruya krich padam padam tatat padantyado nadvita yushpat angrayaha. O Lord, the intelligence of those who think themselves liberated but who have no devotion is impure. Even though they rise to the highest point of liberation by dint of severe penances and austerities, they are sure to fall down again into material existence, for they do not take shelter at your lotus feet. Evidence of this same point is also given in Bhagavad Gita 9:11, wherein the Lord says, Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanamashritam param bhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. When rascals, mudhas, see that Krishna acts exactly like a human being, they deride the transcendental form of the Lord because they do not know the Param Bhavam, his transcendental form and activities. Such persons are further described in Bhagavad Gita 9:12 as follows: Mogasha, Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, Prakritim Mohinim Shritaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Such persons do not know that Krishna's body is not material. There is no distinction between Krishna's body and his soul, but because less intelligent men see Krishna as a human being, they deride him. They cannot imagine how a person like Krishna could be the origin of everything. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Such persons are described as Mogasha, baffled in their hopes. Whatever they desire for the future will be baffled. Even if they apparently engage in devotional service, they are described as Mogasha, because they ultimately desire to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Those who aspire to be elevated to the heavenly planets by devotional service will also be frustrated, because this is not the result of devotional service. However, they are also given a chance to engage in devotional service and be purified. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.17, Shinvatam Swagata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Rinya Taksto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Unless the dirt within the core of one's heart is cleansed away, one cannot become a pure devotee. Therefore the word Sudurlabhaha, very rarely found, is used in this verse. Not only among thousands and thousands, but among millions of perfectly liberated souls, a pure devotee is hardly ever found. Therefore the words Kotishapi are used herein. Srila Madhvacharya gives the following quotations from the Tantra Bhagavata. Navakotyas tudevanam rishayak saptakotayaha narayanayanak sarve yekit kechit tatpadayanaha. There are 90 million demigods and 70 million sages who are all called Narayanayana, devotees of Lord Narayana. Among them, only few are called Narayana Parayana. Narayanayana Deva Rishyadhyas Tat Parayanaha Brahmadyak Kichanaiva Syu Siddho Yogyo Sukham Labam. The difference between the Siddhas and Narayana Parayanas is that direct devotees are called Narayana Parayanas, whereas those who perform various types of mystic yoga are called Siddhas. Text 6. Vritrasura was situated in the blazing fire of battle and was an infamous sinful demon, always engaged in giving troubles and anxieties to others. How could such a demon become so greatly Krishna conscious? Purport. It has been described that a Narayana Parayana, a pure devotee, is rarely found even among millions and millions of persons. Therefore Parikshit Maharaj was surprised that Vritrasura, whose purpose was to give trouble and anxiety to others, was one of these devotees, even on a battlefield. What was the reason for Vritrasura's advancement? Text 7. My dear Lord, Shukadeva Goswami, although Vritrasura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. Text 8. Sri Sutta Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent question, Shukadeva Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. Text 9. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard from the mouths of Vyasadeva, Narada, and Devala. Please listen with attention. Text 10. O King Parikshit, in the province of Shurasena, there was a king named Citraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities for life. Purport. Here the most significant statement is that the earth completely produced all the necessities of life during the time of King Citraketu. As stated in the Ishopanishad, Mantra 1, Ishavashyamidang sarvam yat kincha jagat yam jagat tena chaktena bunjita ma gridha kasya swiddanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Krishna, the Supreme Controller, has created the material world, which is completely perfect and free from scarcity. The Lord supplies the necessities of all living entities. These necessities come from the earth, and thus the earth is the source of supply. When there is a good ruler, that source produces the necessities of life abundantly. However, when there is not such a good ruler, there will be scarcity. We call it today climate change. Oh. However, when there's not such a good ruler, there will be scarcity. This is the significance, Hare Krishna, of the word kamaduk. Elsewhere in Srimad-Bhagavatam 110.4 it is said, Kamam Babarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Duga Mahi. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the clouds showered all the water the people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of men in profusion. We have experienced that in some seasons the rains produce abundance, and in other seasons there is scarcity. We have no control over the earth's productiveness, for it is naturally under the full control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By His order, the Lord can make the earth produce sufficiently or insufficiently. If a pious king rules the earth according to the Shastra conjunctions, there will naturally be regular rainfall and sufficient produce to provide for all men. There will be no question of exploitation, for everyone will have enough. Black marketeering and other corrupt dealings will then automatically stop. Simply ruling the land cannot solve man's problems unless the leader has spiritual capabilities. He must be like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Parikshit Maharaj, or Ramachandra. Then all the inhabitants of the land will be extremely happy. Text 11. This Citraketu had 10 million wives. I mean, that's better than even Krishna. Well, not in the spiritual world, but anyway. But although he was capable of producing children, he did not receive a child from any of them. By chance, all the wives were barren. Text 12. Citraketu, the husband of these millions of wives, was endowed with a beautiful form, magnanimity, and youth. He was born in a high family, he had a complete education, and he was wealthy and opulent. Nevertheless, in spite of being endowed with all these assets, he was full of anxiety because he did not have a son. Purport. It appears that the king first married one wife, but she could not bear a child. Then he married a second, a third, a fourth, and so on. But none of the wives could bear children. In spite of the material assets of Janmaishwarya, Shruti Shri, birth in an aristocratic family with full opulence, wealth, education, and beauty, he was very much aggrieved because in spite of having so many wives, he had no son. Certainly his grief was natural. Grihastha life does not mean having a wife and no children. Chanakya Pandit says, Putra hinam griham shunyam. If a family man has no son, his home is no better than a desert. The king was certainly most unhappy that he could not get a son, and this is why he had married so many times. Kshatriyas, especially, are allowed to marry more than one wife, and this king did so. Nonetheless, he had no issue. Text 13. His queens all had beautiful faces and attractive eyes, yet neither his opulences, his hundreds and thousands of queens, nor the lands of which he was the supreme proprietor were sources of happiness for him. Text 14. Once upon a time, when the powerful sage named Angira was traveling all over the universe without engagement, by his sweet will, he came to the palace of King Citraketu. Text 15. Citraketu immediately stood up from his throne and offered him worship. He offered drinking water and eatables, and in this way performed his duty as a host to a great guest. When the rishi was seated very comfortably, the king, restraining his mind and senses, sat on the ground at the side of the rishi's feet. Text 16. King Parikshit, O King Parikshit, when Citraketu, bent low in humility, was seated at the lotus feet of the great sage, the sage congratulated him for his humility and hospitality. The sage addressed him in the following words. The great sage Angira said, "My dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are well. When the 7 properties of material nature, the total material energy, the ego," What verse is that? 17. The great sage Angira said, "My dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are well. When the 7 properties of material nature, the total material energy, the ego, and the 5 objects of sense gratification are in proper order, the living entity within the material elements is happy. Without these 7 elements, one cannot exist. Similarly, a king is always protected by 7 elements: his instructor, Swami or Guru, his ministers, his kingdom, his fort, his treasury, his royal order, and his friends." Purport. As it is quoted by Sridhar Swami in his Bhagavatam commentary, "Swamyamat yau janapada durga dravina sanchayaha dando mitram satasyatak dando mitram chatasyatak saptapakritayo mataha." A king is not alone. He first has his spiritual master, the supreme guide. Then come his ministers, his kingdom, his fortifications, his treasury, his system of law and order, and his friends or allies. If these 7 are properly maintained, the king is happy. Similarly, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, Dehi no sminyata dehe, the living entity, the soul, is within the material covering of the Mahatattva, ego, and Panchatanmatra, the 5 objects of sense gratification. When these 7 are in proper order, the living entity is in a mood of pleasure. Generally, when the associates of the king are quiet and obedient, the king can be happy. Therefore, the sage Angira Rishi inquired about the king's personal health and the good fortune of his 7 associates. When we inquire from a friend whether everything is well, we are concerned not only with his personal self, but also with his family, his source of income, and his assistants or servants. All of them must be well, and then a person can be happy. Text 18. O king, O lord of humanity, when a king directly depends upon his associates and follows their instructions, he is happy. Similarly, when his associates offer their gifts and activities to the king and follow his orders, they are also happy. Purport. Haribol Nitya. Purport. The actual happiness of a king The actual happiness of a king and his dependents are described in this verse. A king should not simply give orders to his dependents because he is supreme. Sometimes he must follow their instructions. Similarly, the dependents should depend on the king. This mutual dependence will make everyone happy. Text 19. O king, are your wives, citizens, secretaries, and servants, and the merchants who sell spices and oil under your control? Are you also in full control of your ministers, the inhabitants of your palace, your provincial governors, your sons, and your other dependents? Purport. The master or king and his subordinates should be interdependent. Through cooperation, both of them can be happy. Text 20. If the king's mind is fully controlled, all his family members and governmental officers are subordinate to him. His provincial governors present taxes on time, without resistance, and what to speak of lesser servants. Purport. Angira Rishi asked the king whether his mind was also under control. This is most essential for happiness. 21. O King Citraketu, I can observe that your mind is not pleased. You seem not to have achieved your desired goal. Is this because of you yourself, or has it been caused by others? Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. 22. Shukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, although the great sage Angira knew everything, he inquired from the king in this way. Thus King Citraketu, desiring a son, bent low in great humility and spoke to the great sage as follows. Purport. Since the face is the index of the mind, a saintly person can study the conditions of one's mind by seeing his face. When Angira Rishi remarked about a king's discolored face, King Citraketu explained the cause of his anxiety as follows. 23. King Citraketu said, O great Lord Angira, because of austerity, knowledge, and transcendental samadhi, you are freed from all the reactions of sinful life. Therefore, as a perfect yogi, you can understand everything, external and internal, regarding embodied, conditioned souls like us. Text 24. O great soul, you are aware of everything, yet you are asking me why I am full of anxiety. Therefore, in response to your order, let me disclose the cause. Text 25. As a person aggrieved by hunger and thirst is not pleased by the external gratification of flower garlands or sandalwood pulp, I am not pleased with my empire, opulence, or possessions, which are desirable even for great demigods, because I have no son. 26. Therefore, O great sage, please save me and my forefathers, who are descending to the darkness of hell, because I have no progeny. Kindly do something so that I may have a son to deliver us from hellish conditions. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, one gets married simply to have a son, who is needed to offer oblations to his forefathers. King Citraketu responsibly desired to beget a child so that he and his forefathers might be delivered from the darkest regions. He was concerned with how to get pinda, oblations, in the next life, not only for himself, but also for his forefathers. Therefore he requested Angira to favor him by doing something that could help him get a son. Text 27. In response to the request of Maharaj Citraketu, Angira Rishi, who was born of Lord Brahma's mind, was very merciful toward him. Because the sage was a greatly powerful personality, he performed a sacrifice by offering oblations of sweet rice to Twashta. Text 28. O Maharaj, O Parikshit Maharaj, best of the Bharat, the remnants of the food offered in the yajna were given by the great sage Angira to the first and most perfect among Citraketu's millions of queens, whose name was Kritadyuti. Text 29. Thereafter the great sage told the king, O great king, now you will have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation and lamentation. The sage then left without waiting for Citraketu's response. Purport. The word harsha means jubilation and shoka means lamentation. The king was overwhelmed with joy when he understood that he would have a son. Because of his great jubilation, he could not actually understand the statement of the sage Angira. He accepted it to mean that there would certainly be jubilation because of the birth of his future son, but that he would be the king's only son, and, being very proud of his great wealth and empire, would not be very obedient to his father. Thus the king was satisfied, thinking, let there be a son. It does not matter if he is not very obedient. In Bengal there's a proverb that instead of having no material uncle, it is better to have a material uncle who is blind. The king, same in English, the king accepted this philosophy, thinking that a disobedient son would be better than no son at all. The great sage Chanakya Pandit said, Ko nartak putrena jatena yona vidbanda dharmikaha kanina chakshusha kimba chakshu pidai bhakevalam. What is the use of a son who is neither a learned scholar nor a devotee? Such a son is like a blind, diseased eye, which always causes suffering. Nevertheless, the material world is so polluted that one wants to have a son even though he is useless. Don't be useless. This attitude was represented in the history of King Citraketu. Text 30. As Kritikadevi, after receiving the semen of Lord Shiva from Agni, conceived a child named Skanda Kartikeya, Kritadyuti, having received semen from Citraketu, became pregnant after eating remnants of food from the yajna performed by Angira. Text 31. After receiving semen from Maharaj Citraketu, the king of Shurasena, Queen Kritadyuti gradually developed in her pregnancy, O King Parikshit, just as the moon develops during the bright fortnight. 32. Thereafter, in due course of time, a son was born to the king. Hearing news of this, all the inhabitants of the state of Shurasena were extremely pleased. 33. King Citraketu was especially pleased. After purifying himself by bathing and by decorating himself with ornaments, he engaged learned brahmanas in offering benedictions to the child and performing the birth ceremony. Text 34. Unto the brahmanas who took part in the ritualistic ceremony, the king gave charity of gold, silver, garments, ornaments, villages, horses, and elephants, as well as 60 crores of cows, 600 million cows. 35. As a cloud indiscriminately pours water on the earth, the beneficent King Citraketu, to increase the reputation, opulence, and longevity of his son, distributed like rainfall all desirable things to everyone. Text 36. When a poor man gets some money after great difficulty, his affection for the money increases daily. Similarly, when King Citraketu, after great difficulty, received a son, his affection for the son increased day after day. Text 37. The mother's attraction and attention to the son, like that of the child's father, excessively increased. The other wives, seeing Kritayuti's son, were very much agitated, as if by high fevers, with a desire to have sons. Text 38. As King Citraketu fostered his son very carefully, his affection for Queen Kritayuti increased, but gradually he lost affection for the other wives who had no sons. Text 39. The other queens were extremely unhappy due to their being sonless. Because of the king's negligence toward them, they condemned themselves in envy and lamented. Text 40. A wife who has no sons is neglected at home by her husband and dishonored by her co-wives, exactly like a maidservant. Certainly such a woman is condemned in every respect because of her sinful life. Purport. As stated by Chanakya Pandit, Mata yasya grihe nasti bharya cha priyabhadini aranyam tena gantavyam yataranyam tatagriham. A person who has no mother at home and whose wife does not speak sweetly should go to the forest. For such a person, living at home and living in the forest are equal. Similarly, for a woman who has no son, who is not cared for by her husband, and whose co-wives neglect her, treating her like a maidservant, to go to the forest is better than to remain at home. Text 41. Even maidservants who are constantly engaged in rendering service to the husband are honored by the husband, and thus they have nothing for which to lament. Our position, however, is that we are maidservants of the maidservant. Therefore, we are most unfortunate. Text 42. This is the difference between a materialist and a spiritualist. Lord Chaitanya wanted us to be the servant of 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 the maidservant of Radharani. And these persons, they don't want to be the maidservant, the maidservant, the maidservant, the maidservant. Translation. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, being neglected by the husband and seeing Kritayuti's opulence in possessing a son, Kritayuti's co-wives always burned in envy, which became extremely strong. 43. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence. Being extremely hard-hearted and unable to tolerate the king's neglect, they finally administered poison to the son. 44. Unaware of the poison administered by her co-wives, Queen Kritayuti walked within the house, thinking that her son was sleeping deeply. She did not understand that he was dead. 45. Thinking that her child had been sleeping for a long time, Queen Kritayuti, who was certainly very intelligent, ordered the nurse, "My dear friend, please bring my son here." 46. When the maidservant approached the child who was lying down, she saw that his eyes were turned upward. There were no signs of life, all his senses having stopped, and she could understand that the child was dead. Seeing this, she immediately cried, "Now I am doomed," and fell to the ground. Text 47. In great agitation, the maidservant struck her breast with both hands and cried loudly in regretful words. Hearing her loud voice, the queen immediately came, and when she approached her son, she saw that he was suddenly dead. 48. In great lamentation, her hair and dress in disarray, the queen fell to the ground, unconscious. O King Parikshit, hearing the loud crying, all the inhabitants of the palace came, both men and women. Being equally aggrieved, they also began to cry. The queens who had administered the poison also cried pretentiously, knowing full well their offense. When King Citraketu heard of his son's death from unknown causes, he became almost blind. Because of his great affection for his son, his lamentation grew like a blazing fire, and as he went to see the dead child, he kept slipping and falling on the ground. Surrounded by his ministers and other officers and the learned brahmanas present, the king approached and fell unconscious at the child's feet, his hair and dress scattered. When the king, breathing heavily, regained consciousness, his eyes were tearful and he could not speak. When the queen saw her husband, King Citraketu merged in great lamentation and saw the dead child, who was the only son in the family. She lamented in various ways. This increased the pain in the cores of the hearts of all the inhabitants of the palace, the ministers, and all the brahmanas. The garland of flowers decorating the queen's head fell, and her hair scattered. Falling tears melted the collyrium on her eyes and moistened her breasts, which were covered with kumkum powder. As she lamented the loss of her son, her loud crying resembled the sweet sound of a kurari bird. Text 44. Alas, O Providence, O Creator, you are certainly inexperienced in creation, for during the lifetime of a father, you have caused the death of his son, thus acting in opposition to your creative laws. If you are determined to contradict these laws, you are certainly the enemy of the living entities and are never merciful. Purport. This is the way a conditioned soul condemns the Supreme Creator when he meets reverses. Sometimes he accuses the Supreme Personality of Godhead of being crooked because some people are happy and some are not. Here the queen blames Supreme Providence for her son's death. Following the creative laws, a father should die first and then his son. If the creative laws are changed according to the whims of Providence, then Providence certainly should not be considered merciful, but must be considered inimical to the created being. Actually, it is not the Creator, but the conditioned soul who is inexperienced. He does not know how the subtle laws of fruitive activity work, and without knowledge of these laws of nature, he ignorantly criticizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 55. My Lord, you may say that there is no law that a father must die in the lifetime of his son, and that a son must be born in the lifetime of his father, since everyone lives and dies according to his own fruitive activity. However, if fruitive activity is so strong that birth and death depend upon it, there is no need of a controller or God. Again, if you say that a controller is needed because the material energy does not have the power to act, one may answer that if the bonds of affection you have created are disturbed by fruitive action, no one will raise children with affection. Instead, everyone will cruelly neglect his children. Since you have cut the bonds of affection that compel a parent to raise his child, you appear inexperienced and unintelligent. Purport. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Karmani nir dahati kintu cha bhakti bhajan. One who is taken to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, is not affected by the results of karma. In this verse, karma has been stressed on the basis of karma mimamsa philosophy, which says that one must act according to its karma, and that its supreme controller must give the results of karma. The subtle laws of karma, which are controlled by the Supreme, cannot be understood by ordinary, conditioned souls. Therefore, Krishna says that one who can understand him and how he is acting, controlling everything by subtle laws, immediately becomes freed by his grace. That is the statement of Brahma Samhita, Karmani, Nir Dahati Kintu, Chabakti Bhajam. One should take to devotional service without reservations and surrender everything to the supreme will of the Lord. That will make one happy in this life and the next. My dear son, I am helpless and very much aggrieved. You should not give up my company. Just look at your lamenting father. We are helpless because without a son, we shall have to suffer the distress of going to the darkest hellish regions. You are the only hope by which we can get out of these dark regions. Therefore, I request you not to go any further with the merciless Yama. Purport. According to the Vedic injunctions, one must accept a wife just to beget a son who can deliver one from the clutches of Yamaraj. Of course, you could just be a devotee and not do any sin and go back to Godhead and not be. Unless one has a son to offer oblations to the Pitas or forefathers, one must suffer in Yamaraj's kingdom. King Citraketu was very much aggrieved, thinking that because his son was going away with Yamaraj, he himself would again suffer. The subtle laws exist for the karmis. If one becomes a devotee, he has no more obligations to the laws of karma. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. We'll stop tonight. Start at text 57 tomorrow. Okay, I only have tonight. I have to leave at 1:45. We have 9 minutes. Yes, doctor.
Maharaj,
Shoot.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, when reading the lamentation of other wives of Citraketu of not having the son, in purport section, there are some commentaries mention about the woman who doesn't have a son, not treated very well with respect by the husband, are considered like maid servant and should be living to the forest. I don't know, feel like it's, to me, with my limited intelligence, it's appear like blaming to the women for not having the kids. And growing in India, look like in the villages, that is the normal conception. When I was a child, used to feel that way. So is this kind of the reason? But now, at least we know with whatever medical advancement that it can be problem, or the issues could be with the male or with the female. It's not exclusively have to be the
This doesn't have anything to do with the physical ability or lack of ability of the husband or the wife to have the children. We're talking about the subtle laws of nature. If we don't have knowledge of the subtle laws of nature, then we will analyze things on the basis of the gross laws of nature. So if we don't understand or don't have higher knowledge, then we will think that these things cause suffering and jubilation. That is the result of ignorance, of lack of spiritual knowledge, lack of spiritual understanding. This is an extreme case, naturally. Therefore, it's in the Bhagavatam. Very extreme case. So the general law is if we act according to the laws of nature, then these things, these aberrations won't happen. And that's why in the verses and the purports themselves, there's some lamentation and some blaming, of the material laws of nature, providence, blaming God, actually. But we all are caught in an extremely intricate and extremely complicated network of actions and reactions. Every one of us in the material world is connected to everyone else by millions and millions of births of actions and reactions in which we have had relationships with other souls we don't even know, we don't even remember. And we'll hear about this when Angira comes soon and allows this child to speak to his father from the other side. So lamentation and jubilation and all these things, they come from lack of spiritual understanding, lack of knowledge, lack of proper behavior, lack of following the laws of nature. We don't know what we've done in millions of lifetimes before to deserve whatever it is that happens to us now. But the fact is that the laws of nature are inexorable. They're not. They don't make mistakes. Krishna doesn't make any mistakes. So without that faith and without that understanding, then we will do business with Krishna. And if we don't get it our way, then we'll blame him. And never mind what I might have done, I don't even know. So when a devotee who's in knowledge understands these things, when something bad happens to him, what does he think? If one's actually a devotee, and it's not just under the materialistic laws of lamentation and illusion and all these things, then if something bad happens to him, he thinks, oh, Krishna, you're so kind. It should have been a lot worse. I mean, only you know. I mean, I know what I've done and what I deserve, and you know more. So, you're just giving me a little tiny bit of what I deserve. Thank you so much. And the devotee never becomes the enemy of his enemy. As Krishna says in the 12th chapter of the Gita, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So when something bad happens to a devotee, he thinks, oh, this is very good, because whatever is keeping me in the material world from my bad activities is being reduced. And when something good happens, he thinks, oh, very good, because whatever is keeping me in this material world from my good activities is being reduced. Because his goal is to go back to Godhead. His goal is not to have perfect life here in this material world, which is not possible, by the way. It's not possible. So when we blame God, when we think things should be perfect in this material world, when in fact, the material world is created in such a way as to not be perfect, so that the soul can never think that he belongs here forever. Purport. Coming again to the point of pure devotional service, the Lord is describing the transcendental qualifications of a pure devotee in these two verses. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does he become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So it is better to suffer than to protest. In the Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is stated, Tattenu kampam susamikshemano bunjana evatmikritam upipakam. Whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the Lord's mercy upon him. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is always calm, quiet, and patient, despite many distressful conditions. A devotee is also always kind to everyone, even to his enemy. Nirmama means that a devotee does not attach much importance to the pains and trouble pertaining to the body, because he knows perfectly well that he is not the material body. He does not identify with the body, therefore he is freed from the conception of false ego and equipoised and happy in distress. So, because the queens were envious and in such distress, they poisoned the child. He is tolerant and he is satisfied with whatever comes by the grace of the Supreme Lord. He does not endeavor much to achieve something with great difficulty. Therefore, he is also always joyful. I heard Prabhupada say the other day, what's the proof? Human life does not mean to work hard like an ass. He said, why? Because a person who works hard and makes a lot of money, what does he do? The first thing, he gets a nice little bungalow out there in the countryside somewhere, or the mountainside or the beach, so he can go away and stay there and let his employees toil in the factories. So they know that the goal is not to work hard like an ass. But we've created a civilization where everyone has to work hard like an ass, and if they don't, then they're criticized for being lazy or irreligious or unqualified, and in that way everybody just waltzes down the road holding hands and suffering. 'Tis folly to be wise, where ignorance is bliss. So the people in India who are in the villages who still act like this, they're not understanding the law. They're just going by tradition. They're just going by, some ignorance. Therefore, he is always joyful. He is a completely perfect mystic because he is fixed in the instructions received from the spiritual master, and because his senses are controlled, he is determined. He is not swayed by false arguments, because no one can lead him from the fixed determination of devotional service. He is fully conscious that Krishna is the eternal Lord, so no one can disturb him. All these qualifications enabled him to fix his mind and intelligence entirely on the Supreme Lord. Such a standard of devotional service is undoubtedly very rare, but a devotee becomes situated in that stage by following the regulated principles of devotional service. Furthermore, the Lord says that such a devotee is very dear to him, for the Lord is always pleased with all his activities in full Krishna consciousness. So that's the teachings of the Vedas. And when people forget that, then they do all kinds of crazy things, and think all kinds of crazy things, and feel all kinds of crazy things. Okay, I gotta stop now. I just went over by 5 minutes. King Citraketu ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. See you tomorrow night, 6:30, same place, same station, as we romp through the Srimad-Bhagavatam and learn everything we need to know to go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Okay.